here's what's very clear is that they've like there's still a few people out there that are saying that this is a scam and people they're just trying to get investment money to put into their own pockets. They have no intention of building a vehicle. Well, if that's what they were doing, they're doing it really poorly because they're spending a ton of money.
Well, I guess Steve is referring to me, but unfortunately he says I say it's a scam, and that's a mistake straight away. I say it's highly likely it's a scam, and there's a very big difference between the two. I'm certainly not one to say it's not a scam, that's for certain. And I don't believe Steve has any basis for saying it is, that it is a genuine effort to make a production car. To begin with, he says, why would they spend so much money on software? Well, how much money have they spent? Have we got any idea how much they have spent on this software? Or has it just been brought across from the other companies they've been involved with and borrowed for a little while, taken a day or two to adjust to make it look like they use it for Aptera? I think that would be easy to do. So there he is. Ask the question, why spend so much money on software when the question really is, have they spent any money on software? I don't think they have. They certainly haven't proven anything, as usual. So let's take a closer look, just like Steve likes to take a closer look at things.
Buying these software packages and getting the infrastructure ready for a manufacturing plant. Like if it was a scam, why would you waste money on that? It just makes no sense whatsoever.
It does make sense because it's really a carbon copy of what happened last time. They have spent about 5 years getting money and spending money to make it look like the project is real. And this is the way money comes in. They've just copied the same pattern. They do spend a lot of money, but they're dragging in much more money than they could ever do if they had gone cheap about what they show us. They're good at the snake oil, but they've got to have something behind them to sell. There's got to be something, and that's what they do. They do enough to fool the gullible.
So I mean, of course, I don't believe they're a scam, and I put out several videos talking about that. They're getting all their ducks in a row.
They're not getting all their ducks in a row. They're fooling you into thinking they're getting ducks in a row by showing you a bit of borrowed software and modifying it to make it look like it works for Aptera. When what really are ducks in a row are making prototypes and testing them, independently testing them, to prove each performance claim that they make, rather than just depend on simulated data. The computer telling us that they can do these things. I don't believe the computer knows that they can do these things. They say computers are within 5% or something of reality. I don't know that. And I was a computer programmer. Admittedly, it was old-fashioned English and databases, but in any case, I still don't know that simulated results on a computer are within 5% of reality. There are no ducks in a row until they build prototypes that aren't fake and have them independently tested to see that the computer programmed simulations are within 5% of what they are claiming.
So that when the investment money comes, then they can just order the supplies and get going.
I have put some of the last part of what Steve has said in the front, but it doesn't matter. Now we're going to go through in a more chronological order.
Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club.
One small detail is the TV screen in the background showing the production stages, and yet it's just there as a prop. It's behind the man so that you can think they are using it. We don't know that they use it. And what are they using it for?
Just today, Aptera put out this video called Design to Production where Nick Rocco is talking about the software systems that they have been testing and using. And it looks like they've invested a lot of money and a lot of time in developing these systems, and they seem really good. So there were a couple of small details in here that I thought were interesting and that we could talk about. It's a little heavy. This is interesting. So if you look at this very carefully, you look at product model here and it says like closures and exterior, and you see black, white, gray. So that's the exterior colors, noir, Sol, Luna. And then front chassis is dual motor, that's all there is. And then rear chassis, there's a variant. So the little reds mean variant. And so you can have a rear chassis that's a single motor. So that's for the three motor Aptera, which would be the launch edition. And then there's the coaster, which is, just a rear wheel that doesn't have a motor in it. And then suspension, there's the standard suspension and the off-road suspension. So this seems to indicate that the off-road, the entire suspension is different on the off-road, which would make sense.
In the suspension section, it's been pretty Mickey Mouse up to here, but in this suspension section, they don't account for the fact that a 1,000-mile Aptera with a 100 kilowatt hour battery is going to need beefier suspension.
So I don't know how old this picture is. Some of the footage in this video is many, many months old, as I'll point out. So I don't know if this is the most current product model variant tree, but at some point they did have they were considering, they were putting the off-road into this tree here. And then the battery pack was 25, 40. And see, you can tell here that there is some kind of a typo here because it's 25 kilowatt hour, 40 kilowatt hour, and then it says 600 and 1,000 kilowatt hour, which obviously is not the case. It's 60 kilowatt hour and 100 kilowatt hour.
If this was a typo and people were using this in the company, somebody would have noticed it because more than one person would be looking at it. One person would look at it if they were just making it up from a borrowed chart from a previous company. That's when few people would ever see the typo. If this was being used and being used for quite some time, it would have been fixed by now. They're not using this. By the way, Steve knows this because somebody made a comment on his video.
Um, and then it's really hard to make out what this is. Let me see if I can make it full screen and we can tell. Oh yeah, so it says solar, and this is solar roof, and then the lift gate is a composite lift gate.
That one that you could hardly see just has solar roof. Well, there's 4 sections that have solar on them. Roof is only 1 out of 4. This has been just thrown together and has not been used for that long period of time that it's supposed to have been.
Or a solar liftgate, which is interesting because it seems to indicate that there is no glass liftgate. I don't know if that's the case because there was a question of the way that CPC Group is making the rear hatch. Um, it's not really conducive to putting glass on there. It's got that kind of scalloped middle part that gives it structural rigidity. So my suspicion, and this is total, speculation,
It didn't take long for Steve to start speculating again. The great guesser is at it again.
is that the current CPC hatch cannot accommodate a glass hatch. I think they would have to re-engineer that for glass. So currently, it may be that they're just having an opaque composite liftgate or a solar liftgate. And then there is a solar hood or a composite hood, which makes sense. And then interior, there's three variants of the interior: blue, tan, orange, pet kit, and camping kit. Okay, so let's just keep going here.
Steve doesn't get to the bottom of that Mickey Mouse chart, but it appears that it was just thrown together to make it look like they're using it, and they're not using it. Nobody's looking at it.
And then interesting right here, you see some of this stuff is really old because if you look at the date of this is February 7th, 2022. So they've been working on this manufacturing software for well over a year. And then this is interesting is you can tell what system they're using here. This is their PLM system. And a couple of others. And you can see here running in the background, this is their virtual simulation of the assembly line, which is something that Sandy Monroe told them that they should do. And so they can virtually run the assembly line and see how well their software packages are working in terms of supply chain, in terms of inventory management, in terms of how quickly they can run, how quickly they think they can run through the various things. So you can tell here that if you look back, if you look here, that was their composite shell. So this is old footage. So this is not, a lot of this footage is kind of like put in from old footage that they had before. And here is some footage of them doing the solar testing. And later on, they talk about how they're actually using the system, not just in simulation like you see on the screen behind him, but in reality on a real factory. They're using it in the solar manufacturing plant that they have in Vista, California.
They offer to show people this being actually in use, and I would challenge Steve to go and suss it out, to have them not only show the solar panels being produced for the silly trike, but also to show them in detail all of these systems and how they work as they are making solar panels.
And this is him talking about how these things integrate. So there's these design files, and those are the files that are using to make all these renders that we've been seeing lately. And then there's the product lifecycle management software. That's that Innovia software. And then there's the ERP, which we had a video about before. And I think that just kind of is like oversees the supply chain and buying from the various suppliers and things like that. And one of the things they talk about is with this software, they're able to track every single part from the supplier into each individual vehicle. There's many different software packages that all interact with each other.
Again, it's Mickey Mouse. It doesn't have enough in it to prove that they're doing anything with this stuff. It just is glossing over what they should be doing and could be manufactured in a day with borrowed software.
And make it so that they can make sure that they have the right amount of supplies ordered from their suppliers in their inventory, and then that we know exactly where that is, like it's where it is in the warehouse, and then it will get taken to the staging area based on what your order is.
That high level chart with about 5 or 6 little boxes can be made by a grade 9 student on Word even. It doesn't need much of a program to create it, but it has the fanboys starry eyed. It also is very useless at that high level at proving anything is happening. The layout final assembly line diagram is pretty useless also. We've got step 10 label print, step 20 FAOT build vehicle. Okay, where's step 1 to 9? Where's step 11 to 19? Just looks absolutely useless to me.
And so this is supposed to make everything very automatic and streamlined and optimized so that every build, the right part comes to that station so that it can be put on, and then it's all tracked through.
This warehouse management system chart looks pretty useless also because you've got aisles and levels in the aisles and you've got positions, but all you've got's numbering. You don't, well, letters and numbers in some garbled fashion. So aisle, levels in aisles, broken down to, and then broken down to positions. No, bays and positions. I need to look closer. So there's bay 1, bay 2, and positions in the bays, 4 positions possible in the bays. And what do you have? Garbled numbers. Where's the product? What is the product?
Um, the manufacturing execution system, the MES that they're using, you'll see here in a little bit when they show it running in their solar factory, is right here. You'll see it's something called Run Card from Interratios. They've invested a lot of brain capital and financial capital into buying these systems, integrating them, and making sure they work in a small scale in their solar plant. So I think this footage is fairly recent, although I don't know why, if you look carefully here, some of it says gamma.
This one of the shop scanning device I've commented on in previous videos of my own. Once again, the tape that it supposedly produces doesn't have any sense to it. I would challenge Steve to check out what everything means on that tape when he goes and takes up their offer on having a check of their solar production facility.
These should not be gamma arrays. Like, see, it says roof gamma solar assembly. You would think that they would have moved beyond the gamma assembly because they should be going to the. Ideally, they should be producing the solar panels that fit the Delta vehicle, but maybe the Delta vehicle is not that different. And one of the other big criticisms that I hear people say, especially in the comments, is like, why don't they just hand build some and just start putting it out there? Which makes a lot of sense at a gut level, and it seems like common sense. But if you think about it a little more carefully, you'll see why that doesn't work. And maybe I'll make another video about why that's not a viable strategy.
He says if you think about it carefully, you'll see why it doesn't work. but he doesn't tell you why he sees it not working. I have thought about it, and I think the people who want a real prototype built are correct. I'm fed up of seeing 5 fake prototypes. We know they're fake. They've been caught out making fakes, and it's time they made real prototypes that prove by independent tests that they are within 5% of that computer simulated claims. They've already taken 22 horsepower off the three-wheeler and made it a weaker proposition. They've reduced it from their once promised 110 miles per hour to 101 or 2, something like that, and I really don't think they can do that. Somebody calculated it to be 82, but in either case, at 102, it would be screaming its doors off and would not last long at maximum revs of the weak little motors they have.
Okay, well, anyways, I thought this was a great video. What I got from it is they are investing a lot of money and time and human capital into getting these systems ready.
How he got there investing a lot of money, I don't know. He has not seen any purchase or any price. He just sees a few screens that could be doctored up and says that they've invested money. Fambro and Anthony have had previous manufacturing concerns from which they could have borrowed these programs and just tweaked them a little. In a day, is my guess. In a few days at best. And they're fooling the gullible. And the cretin Steve is one of the easiest to fool.
So that they'll be ready to go once they have the money to order these things, which I think is great. They're not wasting their time just waiting for the money to show up.
They're still selling the snake oil. They're certainly not wasting time, but they are not getting any closer with building the Delta. You'll have to wait a long time before the ultimate disappointment.
They're getting everything lined up so that they'll be ready to go. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys.